Everyone is working from home these days, and even if you're not a professional writer, you may find yourself needing to market yourself and your skills online. So I want to share my top 5 tips for writing for an online audience. So, tip number 1, you want to write short sentences and paragraphs as much as possible. One of the things that people don't often realize about audiences who read online is that people actually read slower when they're reading from a screen. So we tend to think because we skim that we read faster, but actually we read about 25% slower when we're reading from a screen, and we tend to skim more than we actually read at a deep and intense level. So I like to work with people rather than trying to fight this tendency that we have to read slowly. So make the copy easy for people to get through. And one of the ways you can do that is keeping your sentences short and keeping the paragraph short. Sometimes you might even have a paragraph that's just one quick sentence. My next tip is, along with the short sentences and paragraphs, simplify your wording whenever possible. Don't add in complex terminology. Don't use foreign words. Don't use fancy words. Just use simple words that even a grade schooler could understand, unless you need to use an industry specific word. But keep the copy really plain, really straightforward. Remember that people are going to be just skimming through, probably on a mobile phone or a tablet, and just make it really easy for people to get through. The skills you'll be using as a writer are not finding that beautiful, perfect adjective. It's going to be, can you put together a clear, articulate sentence that makes sense? Phrases are fine. You don't need to have a complete sentence every time. In fact, because people are skimming, it can work really well to have a phrase as long as the meaning and the intention is there and it's clear. You may even want to break out things into bulleted phrases or lists. That works really well in an online context. So play around with that and notice what other websites do. I find this is a really effective way to communicate online. One of my favorite tips is to bold essential words and phrases. So if you find that you need to put more copy on a web page than you would like to do ideally, what you can also do is find the few lines or the few words and phrases that are absolutely essential for the reader to grasp the overall meaning of what you're saying, and put those words in bold. Bolding is a format that tends to translate to most places that people could re-upload your copy. So if they put it on Facebook, if they email it to somebody else, bolding will probably translate. Most places they can send that. And then if somebody, say if they're skimming your copy really quickly, think about, geez, what 4 or 5 lines would I absolutely want to make sure that they see? And then if they're pulled in by what you have bolded, they may come back later and read it at a deeper level. So it may help you to actually draw in your reader at a deeper level. And the biggest thing to keep in mind is, if you're new to writing for the web, you're gonna need a lot less copy than you think. So start looking around at websites, look at what other people do, notice when you are drawn into a website or when it really resonates with you, how much copy is there. It's gonna be hundreds of words less than you think. There's not very much copy on websites. What you're doing when you write for a website is you're making an impression with a reader, you're pulling them in, and then you're very briefly introducing yourself to them. So you don't need to tell your whole story. You don't need to get the background of how you got into this business, your whole entire history. You are just briefly introducing them and enticing them, and then you'll give them all of the information later. So I hope that was helpful. Just a few basic tips on how to write for the web, now that maybe everybody has to market themselves online nowadays. And if you have other tips, feel free to share them in the comments. I love learning new strategies and new ideas. Thanks for watching.